Hello, I'm Matteo, the Chief Mobile Opinionist here at the Tech Travel Geeks. And this is the Tech Travel Geeks side-by-side comparison between the Nokia 2.2, launched in mid-2019, and the Nokia 2.4, launched in the second half of 2020. The two devices are both part of the Nokia 2 series, though just over a year means quite a lot of improvements in the same price range and in the same smartphone series, as we'll see shortly. If you don't already, please do subscribe to the Tech Travel Geeks here on YouTube. Not only will we be comparing smartphones such as these two devices, and say comparing Nokia smartphones to Xiaomi Redmi devices and other series of smartphones, we also cover consumer electronics which we believe make the travel experience better, as well as sharing some of our content which we think is relevant, including our drone flights. So, in 2019, I purchased and unboxed and did a bit of coverage of the Nokia 2.2. Nokia launched the Nokia 2.2 on Android One, and you can see that from the logo here at the bottom of the device. That means that there's a very close collaboration between Google and Nokia in trying to get the latest security patches and operating system updates to Android One devices. Now, in my experience, especially with the Nokia 2.2, that has been very, very inconsistent. And I have often gone more than 3 months at a time without a security patch. Only recently did I get the Android 10 update for the Nokia 2.2, and that was after Android 11 had launched. So it's not as good as advertised in my view, and overall a bit disappointing, especially considering how much hype there has been around Android One. So, the Nokia 2.2 was quite a value play. It's unapologetically plastic, with a plastic shell at the back, which is not only plastic, but it's also removable. And with a bit of kung fu, you can pull the back off, and under there, not only will you find where to put your SIM cards and memory cards, but it has a removable back. So if you're one of those people who likes having a spare battery so that they can swap one in if they don't have access to electricity, that's a really good option. Now, overall, the device was relatively small. It's a 5.8 inch display, or technically 5.71 inch. And that's 720 by 1520. Overall, not too bad, but it wasn't one of those giant smartphones that are available at the time. Now, in 2020, 2 generations later, because there's a Nokia 2.3 in between, we've reached the Nokia 2.4, which is a significantly bigger smartphone, quite an upgrade in terms of performance and overall experience. And it also has a different aspect ratio, which is much bigger. And if you put these two devices down side by side, you'll see that they're both Nokia branded, have the same design language, but the difference is that the Nokia 2.4 is significantly longer, but not necessarily that much wider. So, Android One, as I said, in my experience has been quite inconsistent, but it is one of the selling points of the Nokia 2 series. The Nokia 2.2 doesn't have much in terms of luxuries. What it does have is a nice teardrop notch display. It uses micro USB for charging. It doesn't have a fingerprint scanner, so you often need to resort to, in this case, my N for Nokia, unlock pattern for unlocking the screen. And the Nokia 2.2 is built on a MediaTek quad-core processor. That means it has 4 hamsters on the inside, spinning the wheels and making your apps and services work. That is part of its downfall. So the Nokia 2.2 can be sluggish at times, especially after the latest Android 10 update. And if you're doing more than just the basics like messaging and browsing the web, it does start to stutter. That's particularly noticeable in the Google feeds to the left-hand side of the screen. Whereas with the Nokia 2.4, just over a year later, you get modern commodities like a fingerprint scanner on the back, which in my view is probably the best positioning for it. You get a bigger smartphone without a removable back, without a removable battery, which is a downside, but a much more solid design and a much more solid construction. I say a much more solid design because, as you can see here, the Nokia 2.2 with its glossy back is quite the fingerprint magnet. It just picks up anything that's there. Whereas the Nokia 2.4 has a textured plastic finish and sort of gradient from a darker grey at the bottom to the top. It not only does it look better, because it doesn't catch smudges, it's also much less slippy. It's a much more ergonomically friendly device, especially if you have bigger hands. But as I said, the most important commodity or feature to me is that fingerprint scanner, which makes not only the device much safer in some situations, but it also makes it easier to unlock the device with that one tap, which is ergonomically well placed. Now, while the design language of the device is very, very similar, you'll also notice that the camera modules are different. The camera module on the Nokia 2.4 has not only a main sensor, which is 13 megapixel, but it also has a secondary sensor. In this case, it's a 2 megapixel depth sensor that helps with portraits, depth of field, and so forth. That extra camera performance, though they're both 13 megapixel, the Nokia 2.4 does perform much better in my personal opinion. And overall, it is a much better smartphone because of that number of hamsters. The Nokia 2.2 has 4 hamsters, the Nokia 2.4 has an octa-core processor. They're both chipsets made by a company called MediaTek. Whilst the MediaTek A22 is a 12 nanometer quad-core processor, so 4 hamsters, the MediaTek P22 is a 12 nanometer octa-core processor. So there's more hamsters, they run faster, they make those wheels work better, and that gives you a much better experience in the smartphone itself. Now, both have Android One, both have a very similar user experience overall. So you have almost a Google Pixel-like setup, which in terms of your menus, your interfaces, is what the Google experience is like, and is quite pleasant. So if you've used a Pixel, or you've watched videos about people using Google Pixels and going on about what some people call stock Android, that's essentially what you're getting with the Android One program from Nokia. So the menus are all here, it's all great experience. Now, one of the things is, obviously, the Nokia 2.2 has now been updated to the same version of Android that's running on the Nokia 2.4. Both are now running Android 10, also known as Android Q, which gives you an option for a dark theme, which in my view is one of the biggest features Android has had in recent years, because not only does it, in some cases, depending on the technology of your smartphone, save you in terms of battery life, it also reduces the strain on your eyes, especially when using your smartphone in darker situations such as at night. Now, you'll see side by side, the front of the device is very, very similar in terms of industrial design. Both devices have a volume rocker and power button on the right-hand side of the screen. And on the left-hand side of the screen, they both have a dedicated Google Assistant button, which is one of those things that shows not only how the Android One program is about getting updates to users, but it's also about getting adoption of the Google Assistant. This is the incentive to Google to do the Android One program. They want more people using Assistant to improve their search product. Both devices have a selfie camera in a water drop or teardrop notch at the top here. Some would call them nipples. This isn't something that's ever bothered me. I do quite enjoy that, and it's much less intrusive than a whole notch at the top rather than just the teardrop or water drop. The difference here is that both are 5 megapixel selfie cameras, but again, just as the number of megapixels is there, the Nokia 2.4 has a noticeably better output of pictures compared to the Nokia 2.2. And overall, the experience is very, very different, not only for the speed, that 4 hamsters versus 8 hamsters, but it's different because of the screen itself. You can see that the Nokia 2.4 is a bigger device, even side by side with the Nokia 2.2. It's also much longer. That's because there's a different aspect ratio. So the Nokia 2.2, we said, is a 5.71 inch display, and it's a 19:9 aspect ratio, which means that as far as ratios go, that's 9 and that's 19. The resolution in this case is 720 pixels, so what some would call HD ready or HD, basic HD. And the height of the display in this case is 1520 pixels. Whereas with the Nokia 2.4, we have a longer aspect ratio. So the Nokia 2.4 has 720 pixels by 1600, and you can already tell that that's a 20:9 aspect ratio if you're really fast at doing your maths. So that longer aspect ratio means that whilst the diagonal distance is significantly bigger, this is a 6.5 inch screen, it's actually not as big as the difference implies, because the diagonal, it depends on the aspect ratio. So even though this is a 6.5 inch screen, it's not that much bigger than the 5.7 inch of a shorter aspect ratio because the surface is bigger. And yes, they're two very different device sizes. Some people will prefer the smaller one, but the faster chipset and the faster speed is noticeable on the Nokia 2.4. This is, I would say, more than a year ahead in terms of features and performance. This is definitely a step up. So in terms of price, you can still buy the Nokia 2.2 in many stores, both brick and mortar as well as online. And that is priced more or less at £70 now, depending where you get it. I'll drop an Amazon link in the description to this video, so check that out in terms of pricing. Whereas the Nokia 2.4 currently, and in the second half of 2020, is priced at around about £100. In my view, that price difference is significantly worth it. It's very similar. You have micro USB with both. I think that at the end of 2020, in this price range, that's still acceptable. But bear in mind that if you're wanting to borrow a charger for friends and family, for both the Nokia 2.2 and the Nokia 2.4, you may have an older charger at this point, which not everyone has. But in that price range, I'm willing to forgive Nokia if that reduces the price of the device and allows them to deliver other values such as the Fingerprint Scanner and the overall bigger, better battery. Because the Nokia 2.4 has a 4500 mAh battery. With that not too high resolution screen, but still high definition screen, and pretty efficient chipset in that MediaTek Helio P22, that gives you really, really good battery life. I've used this device as my main device for a few days, and I've managed to get a few days of full use out of it without having to top up. When you do top up, it's not the fastest charging device, but not something to complain about, especially at the price point. So the Nokia 2.4 is definitely an upgrade on the 2.2. It's definitely a much better overall experience, both in terms of hardware and software. Hopefully, Nokia will carry on updating the Nokia 2.4 and will do so much better than they did with Nokia 2.2, because in my experience here in the UK, the updates were not consistent, they were not timely, and the device actually deteriorated its performance significantly over that time. The Nokia 2.4 launched with Android 10. There's definitely an upgrade to Android 11 planned, but whether that happens or not, we'll need to see. And if it does happen, when will it happen? Will it be after Android 12 is out? We'll see. So, both these devices are great value. Both of them offer expandable storage, having storage built in, which is pretty decent. So the Nokia 2.2 had 16 gigabytes of storage, whereas the Nokia 2.4 has 32 gigabytes of storage. Both devices have 2 or 3 gigabytes of RAM, depending on where you purchase them from and which version of particular model you get. But for most people doing the basics like browsing the web, using their smartphone for the basic social media activities, they're great devices. I would recommend the Nokia 2.4 to people looking for a smartphone in this price range if the Nokia brand is important to them. But what I would say is keep your mind open to newer brands that some people may not have heard of, such as the Xiaomi Redmi brand. We'll be doing a comparison between the Nokia 2.4 and the Redmi 9 from 2020 to do a sort of same year comparison. But this is the side-by-side comparison between the Nokia 2.2 and the Nokia 2.4 in 2020. Overall, if you're shopping around and you're wondering, is it worth spending that extra £30 or so for the Nokia 2.4 versus the 2.2, I would definitely say yes. The other thing is also longevity. The Nokia 2.2 may not be getting updates for much longer, whereas the Nokia 2.4 hopefully will, but we'll need to see. So, I think we've covered all the main things: the camera, the ergonomics, the build, the battery life, the software experience, the fact that they are Android 1 devices. If you have any further questions, feel free to leave those questions in the comment section below this video. If you don't already, please do subscribe to the Tech Travel Geeks here on YouTube. And if there's any device you'd like us to compare, either the Nokia 2.2 or the Nokia 2.4 to, let us know in the comments. We'll have a look at that and see if we can make that happen. But for now, thanks for watching that side-by-side comparison between these two affordable smartphones from Nokia. And we will speak to you soon. Goodbye.